And then just this past weekend, I stopped at the flea market and I saw my one of my favorite vendors again there, who's sold me all that stuff dirt cheap. And he hadn't brought anything new in, but I dug around through a toolbox that was there, and there was a lot of junk in there. But there were a few little items in there that I decided to make a small pile, and he gave me a box to put it all in, and then he said $5 for the whole box. So this is what I got for $5. 4 hacksaw blades. These blue ones look like they're unused. They're a Swordfish brand, made in the People's Republic of China, carbon steel. Isn't that wonderful? And this one looks like it may have been used, judging from the rubs on it here. Master mechanic. But teeth are still good enough. Another striker. This thing, these actually look like they would fit in the T-slots on the mill, but they're too long to get in. So I could cut them down and maybe still use them on the mill for some kind of a clamp setup, because I could see where I slid these two in. I could use this to clamp down on something. If nothing else, these large cap screws can go in my hardware pile. An old Ford wrench, either a Model T or a Model A. I think this is a T-5893. Kind of hard to see it, but it's got a number there. This really small Allen screwdriver. I mean, really, it's almost like a pin vise. There's a set screw right there, and I could change this to whatever I can fit in there. Blackhawk PT-1252, made in the USA. Anybody know what that is? Time's up. This is a special pair of pliers for removing and installing springs on drum brakes. So when you're replacing your brake shoes, it's got a little doohickey on the end here. I've got a pair of these, but they're really El Cheapo brand. These say Blackhawk USA, so they might be a little bit better. This little seal tool, I'm going to call it. This is marked KD USA. Looks like 287B. But I think that's a seal for removing seals. Or two miscellaneous old wrenches. Every Allen wrench that I found in that toolbox I grabbed, including this big honking one. One Exolite 3/16 inch nut driver. Lonely little Exolite nut driver. I'm sure this was originally part of a set. 2 red, well, they're not really Sharpies, are they? If they're called Sanford's Marker Deluxe. Proven permanent on most surfaces. I checked these. These actually aren't dried out. They still write. An X-Acto knife. A feeler gauge set with a rule and some light rust on it. This is made by KASTAR or TAY. It's either Castar or Caste, made in the USA. And this little Stanley offset ratcheting screwdriver. This is a Stanley Yankee number 3400, and like most old Stanley tools that I've come across, it's still in perfect working order. They made some decent tools back in the day. This one intrigued me because somebody had tack welded these little pieces of metal on here. I wonder if that was TIG that they did that. I'm assuming that's maybe TIG welded. Not sure why they would have done that. It's interesting. So I don't know if they just had a reason why they needed to grab it differently or something, but that's what they did there. All right, back to the freebies from the nursing home. Well, I think I had mentioned that when we were cleaning that place out, we had brought out quite a few hospital beds, and they went to the scrapyard. And while the hospital beds was sitting there in the parking lot waiting to go to the scrapyard, I took a look at them and I realized that the motors and the controller and everything to actuate the bed, the way that they're installed on there, they were pretty easy to remove. They just had a series of like clevis pins that needed to be popped out, and you could take these motors right out. And then I just had to cut a bazillion wire ties and removed a couple of screws that actually kept this control module mounted to the frame, and grabbed myself a dongle or whatever you want to call this thing. Now this is actually in pretty rough shape. You can see that the outer covering here is just completely toast, and it's like that in several areas. And what it is over the years, I think that this thing just kind of kept getting into different pinch points on the mechanism or the bed or rubbing, and turned out to take a real toll on it. Now, these things this wasn't as filthy as it is, as it looks now. I think I threw this in the bed of my truck and I think it was rubbing around. It was kind of dirty though. They looked like they had been around the block. So, I don't even know why I took this. I could have taken every one of them off of every bed and ended up with probably 5 or 10 or 15 complete sets of these. But the reason why I grabbed it was because somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I was thinking maybe I could incorporate this into some sort of a project down the road. Maybe some sort of a lift cart or something along that line that I could use here in the shop. So anyways, the first thing I guess we're going to do is find out whether or not these things even work. So we've got all of the motors. There's 3 motors. There's a foot motor, a head motor, and a high-low motor, which raises the whole bed up and down, I guess. And they all plug in with special plugs into this controller, which apparently, according to the motors, this controller is outputting 115 volt AC. So these aren't DC drive motors, they're AC induction motors by the looks of it. And there must be some kind of a gear reduction going on here. And then that all goes into here, and then, well, they're calling this a pendant, not a dongle. So, anyways, let's plug this in, see if we don't pop a circuit breaker. Alright, so far so good. That works. Okay, this one's not working. This one works. Must be a limit switch in here. So the high-low isn't working, and I don't think it's the motor that's the problem because I can hear relays clicking and closing. So if I were a betting man, I'd say it's the pendant maybe is the problem. Alright, so if this is held captive so it can't move, then it'll unscrew or screw up and down on a threaded rod inside there. See it moving? Alright, so that's the limit. Well, that's neat. So it's got a built-in limit switch, so it can't unscrew all the way. So I can see right now the limitation I'm going to have with this thing is going to be the amount of travel that I can get out of this. So the amount of total travel I can get out of this shorter motor here. Well, I think that this one is larger than the other two. This must be the lift one. This must be the foot and the head. So right now it's all the way, all right, that's all the way in. 4.5. 4.5 to 7. So that's only 2.5 inches that the thing actually extends. Wow. That's kind of surprising. So there must have been some sort of a scissor lift mechanism that would turn that 2.5 inches of extension into a much larger movement, because that 2.5 inches of movement there would correspond to taking the bed from perfectly flat to a upright position for like eating or watching TV. Interesting. All right, this one I think must have been for raising and lowering the entire bed. The only reason I think that is because this one appears to have a lot more reach to it. So this is retracted at 6.5 inches, 8 3/4. Well, actually, it doesn't seem to make much difference either. This tube is longer, but the actual 6.5. Yeah, it's about the same. Interesting. I swapped a couple of the plugs now just to confirm that that motor over there is working, and it does work. So the controller is just not outputting anything from the high-low plug. But again, I think this is going to be the culprit. Yesterday I was playing around with this thing, and I went up for the night. I came down today, and I had left it plugged in, and it's plugged into the outlet overhead, so the power came on to this immediately when I turned on the lights here in the shop. And I walked over there to do something, and when I was coming back, I noticed that this orange switch on the back here is glowing. And so I said, oh, that must be a master power switch to shut the unit off. So I figured that's what that was. And then I was going to actually see if I could take this pendant apart, see if I could test the buttons inside. And I started to realize that I have absolutely no idea how this is put together. I tried prying this off thinking there might be a screw hidden behind there, and this doesn't want to pry off. This appears to be part of this whole rubber piece. That's a threaded hole, almost as if like to put a clip on the back of this or something. So none of that was going to be. But I figured I'd shut this off, and when I flipped the switch and the light went out and I hit the button, it still worked. And I was like, wait a minute, why is that still working? And then lo and behold, I happened to hit this switch, and here's my third motor. So this works. This whole setup works perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. For some reason, they have a switch on here that when you flip the switch and this orange light comes on, it locks out this motor. And I don't know why. And that motor is, which one is that one? That's the motor that appears to be the one that they call the high-low. So, well, we got a green LED over here. This must be the main power indicator. There's nothing here Nothing on here to indicate what the purpose of this switch is. But if they want to be able to lock out that feature, they can. As far as killing the power to the whole system, the only way to do that is to unplug it. So, again, like I said, you guys, when you guys think of anything novel that I could do with this system, something to build, I'm all ears. Like I said, I'm leaning towards maybe some sort of a lift here in the shop that I could maybe like roll around. I've been to industrial auctions with it. I've seen those lift carts, the carts you can roll around and put like heavy chucks and stuff on, but then they also have a scissor mechanism built into them so you can raise and lower them. And you know, obviously you'd have to plug it in when you got to wherever you rolled it to, but I don't know, might be worth a shot. I'm in no hurry to build anything with that. I got enough projects. Wow, just checked on eBay, previously sold auctions. Somebody had one of these actuator motors from a hospital bed used. Description says has a small crack but works good, and it sold for $50. That's actual, not an asking price. That's an actual in sold auctions. $50 for one of these things, and I got 3 of them for free. And the only thing that I don't like about it is the fact that I could have had a ton more. Beginning to think I should have put the 14-year-old son of mine there to work on pulling these things off. Spent another hour there that afternoon. Oh, well. I probably never would get around to listing them on eBay. And I'd just have another big, huge pile of stuff. Hey, everybody. It's December 16th. It's my birthday. And anyways, it's about, I don't know, like 12 degrees out today. We're in a, we've got one of those polar vortex things they're talking about that we're in right now here in New England. So as cold as it is now, which is Friday, Sunday they're forecasting a high of 50. Oh, and between now and then they're forecasting 3 to 6 inches of snow. So typical New England weather. You never know what to expect. But this is a pretty deep freeze right now. We usually don't get this kind of deep freeze until the beginning of the next year. January, February is usually miserable. Into March, that's when we get into these stretches of 7 to 14 days of weather that never gets temperatures that never get above freezing. And you know, that might sound horrible depending on what part of the country you're in, but you know, if I have any viewers up in Minnesota, I want to say howdy to you, or you know, Green Bay, Wisconsin, that area there. You're probably like, yeah, you know what? Tell us about it. All right. So, anyways, the reason why I'm out here in the freezing cold is because I'm at my secret remote location for overflow storage of junk. And the reason I came out here today is because I want to try and close out this video series I've been doing. Because I went to an estate sale today, and I got more stuff on the horizon that I've got to go through and show you guys. Some great deals I got today. But in the meantime, let's try and clear off the list a couple of things. I want to give you a sneak peek at a couple of things I picked up that are going to be future projects, and then just a few of the free items that I picked up on that clean out where the stuff was all free, just to kind of close that out and get that out of the way. One of the freebies was this dehumidifier. It actually doesn't look like it's that old. It's got the Energy Star logo on it. I'm not quite sure what year they started that, but it's got a digital readout. This is actually a pretty nice dehumidifier. It's got a hose hooked up to it, a little hunk of hose that was on there because they had this up on a shelf up high so that this could gravity drain into a drain. Anyways, that was actually, technically that would have been an illegal hookup the way it was done, but hey. That building's going to be completely gutted and redone. It's going to be all brought up to code now. But obviously, I got in there. This wouldn't have lasted very long, so I snagged it. No big deal here, just a plastic tote. But you know, it's one of these nice kind of heavy-duty plastic totes. You can always use that for toting my junk. Then I went into a storage area downstairs and I spotted this thing in the corner. When I first saw it, I had absolutely no idea what it was. And then when I picked it up and started to turn it around, I realized it's a grow light. Now this has got one of these, this actually says Aronson on the bulb. It says it's an Aronson agricultural spectrum. So it's a special bulb that puts out high intensity UV rays. Okay, this is real glass. This is all metal. So this is, I think, an older version of these grow lights. This one's by the Hydroform Grow Light. Use only 400 watt metal halide M59 type lamp, which I think those metal halide lamps are big bucks. So there's the maker right there, Hydrofarm. Now this has got an interesting note on the other side. So that's also, they got the Hydrofarm Gardening Products logo up there on the top. But then it says, please do not put anyone up close to the plants when the grow light is on. Dangerous! Exclamation point. Thanks. Because this was, as I had mentioned, like a nursing home. And I think what they had was, I think they had an indoor plant area where they were growing plants, and I think that, you know, to cheer people up maybe, or whatever, or maybe some of the people actually worked in there growing plants throughout the winter as part of their hobby or whatever. But the thing was, they didn't want somebody who was in a wheelchair who couldn't move away on their own to be wheeled up there and just kind of left there and forgotten about, and then have them, end up being a crispy critter and getting a 3rd-degree sunburn from this thing, or destroying their retinas, or God knows what else would happen if you were left under this light too long. These lights, I believe, are quite expensive, and I did find the power supply. So the light's pretty light, pardon the pun, but this power supply transformer here, ballast or whatever the heck it is that's in here, is pretty damn heavy. So this runs off 120 volt, but then it's got this special output, which I'm not sure what the voltage is that runs at. But this, you plug that into this. Now I plugged it in and tried it, and it took a little, like, there was a delay before the light came on, but I think that's normal for these. I think there's a little startup cycle that the filament or whatever has to come up to temperature before it fires off the gas inside that bulb. I may be mistaken on that. But anyways, I'm probably going to sell this. And thanks to the voters of Massachusetts, I think I'll have no problem selling this thing pretty quickly, because Massachusetts had a ballot question, and we've now legalized the smoking of the wacky tobacco here in the state. So I think a lot of people are going to be growing their own real soon. The legislature here in the state of Massachusetts and law enforcement is kind of in a chaotic state right now of flux, because they've got to kind of play catch up now, figure out how they're going to legislate all this. So right now, as it stands today, apparently you can legally smoke it for recreational use if you're over the age of, I believe, 21, but it's illegal to sell it. So the problem is, you still got to know somebody, kind of thing, not nudge, nudge, wink, wink type of thing, so you can get it. Now, apparently there's a loophole that's being exploited that involves, of all things, it involves that supposedly some companies are selling seeds, because apparently there's a loophole that says, hey, you can't sell the plants, but you could sell the seeds. So, and I don't mean to be going off on a rant, because I'm really not ranting. You notice I'm not taking a position pro or con against this. I actually went both ways on the subject myself, because I've got 3 boys, and I know some people in law enforcement, and the everybody I speak to in law enforcement, they all preach that they see it as a gateway drug, is what they call it. And I understand both sides of the argument, and there are good points to be made on both sides of this question, on both sides of this argument, So I don't mean to I'm not even looking for input or opinions on the subject. I guess I'm sorry at this point that I brought it up, but I'll leave this in. I'm not going to edit it out because normally I don't get political or whatever, or I try and stay. But some people like watching people get on the screen there and rant and rave about their views. I don't know. All right, listen, I'm getting off topic here. This damn video is getting long enough.